Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are diving into a really fundamental question. What happens when a government rule, one that's based on EU law, just feels wrong? We're going to look at that classic story of the individual versus the system and explore the pretty surprising ways the EU lets a single person fight back.
So let's put ourselves in someone's shoes. Imagine you're Anya, and you own a small business. One day, a new government rule just drops, and it's based on an EU regulation. For Anya, this isn't just some minor headache. It's a threat to her entire livelihood. She goes to the government office, she makes call after call, and all she hears is, "Sorry, it's the law." She feels totally powerless. What on earth can she do?
All right, here's where it gets interesting. Anya can't just turn around and sue her government at the EU's highest court. That direct route? It's basically blocked for people like her. But that's not the end of the road. See, the system has a couple of clever workarounds. Two indirect paths to justice that, in the end, can make the state answer for its actions. And both of these paths lead to one place. Right here, the Court of Justice of the European Union. We'll call it the CJEU, over in Luxembourg. This court is the final referee. They're the ones who have the last word on what EU law actually means. So let's break down the first way Anya could get her case in front of these judges.
Now, this first path is smart because it doesn't start with Anya trying to get to Luxembourg herself. Nope. It starts right in her own country's court system with her local judge. This whole process is called the preliminary ruling procedure, and it's basically all about asking for a little help from the experts.
Let's just quickly compare the two main options here. We're going to start with path one, the preliminary ruling. Now, the first thing to notice is who gets the ball rolling. It's not Anya herself, it's her national court. And the goal isn't to sue the government, it's much simpler. It's just to ask a question. Hey, what does this EU law really mean?
You can think of it like a local referee in a big soccer match. They see a really weird, complicated play, and they're not 100% sure on the rule. So what do? They pause the game, go to the monitor, and ask the video assistant referee, in our case the CJEU, for the official call. The CJEU gives the answer, and then the local ref gets to make the final decision on the field.
So this creates this really important conversation between the courts. Anya starts her case right at home. Her local judge looks at it and realizes, whoa, the whole case hinges on how we understand this one tricky bit of EU law. So the judge hits pause and sends that very specific question over to the CJEU. The CJEU's answer then clarifies the law for everybody in Europe, not just Anya. That ruling comes back down, and the local judge uses it to decide her case. It's a genius way to make sure the law means the same thing in Italy as it does in Ireland.
Okay, so here's a crucial point. Not every court has to do this. A local court may ask the CJU for guidance if it feels like it needs it. But, and this is a big but, if Anya's case climbs all the way up to the highest court in her country, a Supreme Court, then that court must refer the question. It's not a choice anymore. It's an obligation. And it's there to stop the top national courts from just making up their own versions of EU law. All right, let's talk about the second path. This one's a lot more direct. It's more aggressive, and honestly, it's a much harder mountain to climb. It's called judicial review, and it's not about just interpreting a law, it's about trying to tear it down completely.
With this route, Anya isn't just asking for clarification. She's making a really bold claim. She's saying that the EU Act itself is illegal, and that it should be wiped off the books. It's a direct challenge, basically asking the CJEU to act like a supreme constitutional court and just cancel the act.
But, and this is a huge but, there's a massive hurdle to even get in the door. An individual has to pass a really strict test. Anya can't just argue that the law hurts her business. She has to prove it's of direct and individual concern to her. What does that mean? Well, essentially, she has to show the law hits her so uniquely, it's almost like it was written with her name on it. For a general law that applies to lots of people, that is an incredibly high bar to clear.
And as if that wasn't tough enough, there is a serious ticking clock. Any lawsuit under this procedure has to be filed within just 2 months. That is a super tight window to get a really complex legal challenge up and running.
So these paths give people a real voice. But what happens when a government just fails to follow EU law, and because of that, someone like Anya loses money? Well, this is where the system really shows its teeth.
I mean, it's one thing to have rights written down on paper, but how do you actually enforce them? The answer is a pretty powerful idea that makes governments financially responsible for their screw-ups.
It's called state liability.
And to put it simply, if a government's failure to follow EU law causes Anya to lose money, she can sue her own government to get that money back. It means the state has to open up its wallet and pay for its mistakes.
And this isn't just some abstract theory. It's built on real cases. A case called Frankovich established the whole principle way back in 1991. Then later on, the Kobler case took it a step further. It said a state could be on the hook even for a bad decision made by its own Supreme Court. This makes sure that there's real accountability at every single level of the system.
Okay, let's just zoom out for a second. These legal rules might sound a little technical and dry, but their impact has been absolutely massive. They do way more than just solve one person's problem. They have literally built the foundation of the EU's entire legal system as we know it.
I love this quote from back in 1981. It just nails the long-term impact. It shows how, through thousands of small individual cases just like Anya's, the Court of Justice has quietly built something revolutionary, a constitutional framework that gives the EU its legal muscle and protects the rights of millions of people.
So, the real takeaway here is this idea of a partnership. The courts in each country aren't just taking orders from the CJEU, they're working with it. They're partners in this whole project. And that constant back and forth ensures that EU law isn't just some dusty old rulebook in Brussels, it makes it a living, breathing reality that actually protects people in their day-to-day lives.
So let's go back to Anya. Is she really powerless? No. The path isn't easy, for sure. It means going through local courts, meeting these super strict rules, and hoping a judge asks the right question. But the tools are there. The EU legal system, through these really clever mechanisms, gives the individual a real chance to hold the system accountable and to make sure that everyone, from a small business owner all the way up to a national government, has to play by the same set of rules.